we will make sure that you can have access to the PowerPoint presentation for future use. Okay, so everything will be available to you folks if you have any questions about it. But essentially, we will no longer be using the current year information, so 2016 tax information, to determine your financial aid eligibility. But for our continuing students, this is brand new. This will be the first time that you will need to only complete the CSS Profile and FAFSA application should your situation, should you have already filed for financial aid. Okay. What you need to know before you apply for financial aid is, first I'll say, mom and dad, have a glass of wine handy. It will make the application process way easier. Okay, but you need to have your tax information ready. You'll need to have what you have available in cash and savings, your home value, when you complete the information. And we'll get to this point in time in terms of how we recommend you fill out the information. But we require the CSS Profile to determine institutional need-based eligibility. If you're looking to just qualify for merit scholarships, I will say the merit scholarship program is pretty robust here, but is highly competitive, okay? And there is no guarantee that your student will qualify for scholarships. It is a very tough pool, but we balance that with need-based financial aid. So should you not qualify for a scholarship, you'll make up the difference with need-based financial aid based on your financial circumstances, okay? The fee waiver is available for the CSS Profile should you qualify as a low-income student. And the College Board does define that information clearly. Typically, you are eligible for federal means benefit test, in which case you're only eligible to waive up to 6 schools. After that point in time, schools, you are charged for each school you add. So it's $25 for the initial application and $16 for every school thereafter. Okay, so just be aware that there is a fee associated with the CSS Profile. Okay, first-year students who take the SAT, you already have your profile login and everything, so you don't need to create an application. Okay, and returning students are able to use the same name that they used when they already applied for financial aid. To apply, here's some of the documentation that we're going to need. If you're completing the CSS Profile, you need to have our school code of 5815 on the application in order for to receive it. All right. If you report a status other than married or widowed on the CSS Profile, you will need to have your non-custodial parent complete the CSS Profile statement for them. In addition, you need to make sure that the FAFSA application is completed and our school code is 001536. Okay. I do see a variety of questions in terms of your circumstances have changed between 2015 and 2016, and I will address those questions in the later part of this presentation. Okay. And the notes on the bottom, just for first year, this is the first time you're applying. Even as a continuing student, you will need to submit your 2015 tax documents. It is your entire schedule, your 1040, Schedule A, B, C, E, if you have them, okay, and you submit them to the College Board's IDOC process. This process is used by all the Tier 1 schools, so Dartmouth, Bowdoin, Bates, Northwestern, Northeastern do use this, and so you get to submit your documents once, and you don't have to resubmit them to each individual school. Okay. If you're a continuing student, you get 1 year reprieve because of this change and policy by the Department of Education. If you've already submitted your 2015 information, you do not need to resubmit your 2015 information to IDOC. So that does you're going to buy for 1 year, but you don't get to buy the next year. So as I mentioned about the non-custodial parent, we want to provide you the definitions. And the definition of custodial parent, because we do recognize that some families have a custody agreement if you're divorced, you have a prenuptial agreement, and so forth. But the definition for a custodial parent and a non-custodial parent is established by the Department of Education. We follow that rule. And the definition follows as, the custodial parent is the parent or parents with whom the student has lived with more than 50% of the time. Okay? If we get the argument sometimes that the student has lived 50-50, with each parent. And we will come back with, it's typically hard when it's an odd number of days in the year, but when a family is adamant, the next test that they have to pass is financial support. So if that parent provides more than 50% of the support, and the student lives with them more than 50% of the time, they would be the custodial parent, and the other parent would be the non-custodial parent. Okay, I hope that clarifies in terms of who's required to submit the custodial and non-custodial information should you have to complete this information. Now, dependency status. and many of our peers use the same status. So typically, if you're under 35 years old and you're not married or a veteran, we still consider you a dependent student. Self-sufficiency does not make you independent for institutional purposes. Okay, so we will deal with a case-by-case scenario should a student find that, you know what, their parents are deceased or they don't meet one of these restrictions on it. We do recognize that it is a high bar, but it is important that we're making sure that the resources are going to the students who should qualify the most. Now, let's start talking about the CSS profile as we start getting into this. So to register, you go to the College Board's website, and typically you can do csprofile.collegeboard.org, but we do provide you the actual login information for here. If you've never logged in before, you'll see on the right-hand side, you sign up, okay? And that's how you actually be able to create your account and begin this process. The registration process is pretty important because it does a lot of skip logic. It determines you if you don't want a home, it won't ask home information. If your parents are married, it won't ask non-custodial information. So it's important that as a student fills this out, and parents, I do encourage you that you do sit down with the students who's going through this process so they understand what information we're asking for, because ultimately this is their financial aid application. And we want to make sure that as they continue through the process, they understand these pieces, because when they go on to be a graduate student, go on to law school, medical school, the same information will apply. So it's part of our part in trying to make sure we create a culture of responsibility for students to understand all the information that we're providing to them. Now, what you'll need to do is make sure that you do use the 2017-18 academic year. We do have both years open, 2016 and 2017, so first make sure that you are using the right year. You will use this application annually, all right? So you're getting through this process, and subsequent years, it's nice, you can roll forward the information that's bio and demographic, and this populate it with your new financial information, okay? Make sure that the one person on the computer is signed into the application, and it's got to be the student. I know sometimes mom and dad, you are doing this on behalf of the student, and you tend to enter this information as though you are the student, but just keep in mind that the student is the primary applicant here, and you want to make sure that you don't enter your information erroneously on the application, because that will delay processing, all right? And then once you're done, we do encourage you to print or save your customized pre-application so that way you can use it in the future. And this is what your completed application will essentially look like when you complete the pre-application process. Now, when you start going into this piece, it does ask for parent information. As I mentioned before, prior year, we'll use your 2015 tax data, adjusted gross income, wages, taxes paid, business earnings, the litany of things that are based on your 2015 documents. When it comes to your assets, assets are not what you've done in 2015, they are a point in time. And the point in time is the point in which you're completing the application. So right now you're seeing just parent data, parent's employer status. We look at information on here. It does ask, and this is just for information purposes, as the College Board is kind of determining how they use retirement savings into this process. I affirm to you right now that we do not use the total amount of what you guys have in retirement savings. So 401k, 403b, the total value for retirement is not used in the needs analysis at all. So you could put $1 million in there, and that's what you tell us that you have for retirement savings, that is not used for determining eligibility, okay? So that's that question at the very bottom. Enter the total value of a current parent's tax-deferred retirement pension, annuities, and savings. If you report something there, it's used for analysis. If you don't report anything there, it's not used in analysis. It's just there for analysis purposes. When we start looking at household information, this is where we're going to start determining the place in which you live. And I will say that we do recognize that families live in higher cost areas. So it's important for you to tell us exactly where you live, because we know that living in Manhattan, Kansas versus Manhattan, New York City costs very differently. All right, so it's important that the information is provided to us about where you live and how you want to be communicated with us. So this will ask you your current, what we're going to call base, 2015. It also asks you 2016. So it's going to ask you this information on there, and our counselors, our advisors are trained to look at this information so that way, as we're looking at your application and they see something that really pops out to them that warrants a conversation, they're going to have that conversation with you. They're going to help you figure out whether or not there's an opportunity for a request for review that allows us to take into consideration your 2016 income, because they see there's a reduction in income. Maybe there's a one-time capital gain in 2015 that's not going to be reported in 2016. This is an area of uncertainty for us, but this information is really important to help our advisors really support you to the best that we can. What I will say, and you will see it here, that typically if there's a reduction or an increase that's less than 10%, it's going to have no impact on the eligibility, okay? So keep that in mind as you're looking at that eligibility, and if you do see a reduction in income or increase in income that you want us to make us aware of, it's going to be greater than 10%, okay? This will also ask you 2017. Now, we do recognize that 2017 is coming up, and it's currently UM policy that, unfortunately, that the information in 2017 will affect you when that happens next year. We're only going to look at the base year and the 2016 year, which we'll call current, for determining how much a student would qualify for financial aid. Okay, so we do capture your base year of 2015, your current year of 2016, and we get an idea of what your anticipated 2017 income is. So we can help you prepare. If we see there's going to be a dramatic increase in your eligibility in 2017, we're going to let you know on your award letter that, you know what, you can anticipate potentially a reduction in need-based eligibility because your need has now changed. So this is going to be used to help you prepare and plan appropriately for college expenses. Parent assets, as I mentioned before, are going to be a point in time. We do get that question a lot. Say you have $10,000 in your checking account, and tomorrow you're going to be paying your bill, okay? You can't project what's going to be tomorrow or what it might be later, because ultimately the regulation of statute is that you report what was available on the day you file your application. Because if we see something different, it's ultimately up to you to be able to justify that the value that you're reporting is correct. And if we ask you that you reported your CSS profile on November 7th, we're going to ask you to provide copies of your bank account statements to justify that. Now, I'm not saying we do that out of the gate. It only happens if we see a conflict in information that we're receiving. So it's important that when you're reporting this, you report it in the point in time. You'll also see that that it's asking for market value of your home. It is not assessed value. And I will say that we do look at home equity, and that families have that as a part of their net worth, but it is not a sole determining factor here. Now, we do determine what a family's net worth is. We do protect catastrophic loss. We do protect for education savings allowance and other students. But ultimately, when we look at discretionary net worth, we only take between 3 to 5% of a family's discretionary net worth. So I don't want you getting completely concerned about the fact that your house has amassed a certain amount of equity over a period in time. Say you bought a house in Boston in 1970 on Com Ave for $100,000, and over the last 30 years, your equity has gone to $1.5 million to $2 million. We're going to look at what your family earns and cap your home equity based on your income, because we're going to use a standard ratio of three times your income for standard debt. That's what typical companies will use. We use a lot of this value within the industry to determine how much of a value we'll use, and then after that we determine what that family contribution from assets will look like. Now, I'm hoping I'm not going too fast, so right now I'm going to give an opportunity to ask any questions that maybe Francis or Jennifer haven't answered yet. So if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll take a few questions right now. All right. All right, so we will start with, I think Lazaro has a question. Lazaro, can you unmute your phone? Can you ask the question?
Can you hear me?
Hi there.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for the session, by the way. I'm a returning parent. My daughter is a sophomore in the School of Nursing.
Okay.
It seems that this form on the parent side seems to be very skewed towards assets and nothing about liabilities. Could you address that?
So liabilities in terms of the debt associated with those liabilities?
Well, just in general liabilities, car loans, other things that don't show up on your tax form, like car insurance. I have two teenagers. I can't even begin to tell you what my car insurance bill looks like on an annual basis, but that doesn't appear anywhere on a tax form or the like. So, again, the form seems...
That's a great question. So what I will say is that in order to provide horizontal plus vertical equity, what we try to do is we look at what a family's what we call income protection allowance. That takes into consideration standard living allowances. We don't take into consideration debt. Debt is determined to be a family choice here. So credit card debt, if you choose to use a different financing vehicle and so forth, what we try to do here is make value judgment on how a family decides to live. But we take into consideration the area in which the family is living, look at their consumer expenditure survey, we look at consumer price index, we look at a variety of aspects to take into consideration a family of 4 plus 1 in college. How much does it take them annually to live? Okay, and I'll give you an example. So families may, and it's a bad example, so don't take this at face value. The formula will cover the Ford Focus, okay? If a family chooses to have a Lexus, a Hummer, maybe a Bentley, for instance, we won't adjust the family contribution or allowances to cover the family choice there. So what we will do in that case is only allow what a standard family, what a reasonable allowance will be, okay, before we determine what their family contribution will be, okay? We do take into consideration educational loans. Okay, so if you as a parent went to complete your master's degree or professional degree and you're still paying your educational loans, what we do is we take that as a request for review item. And a family will get an annual allowance for how much they paid towards educational expenses and the formula. Okay, I hope that answers your question. We try to take into consideration metropolitan areas for higher cost living. We try to make sure we factor in reasonable allowances for expenses for the family. If the family is living from paycheck to paycheck, but they're making a fairly good income, that's a family matter and not something that we typically can allow within the assessment. Okay, I hope that answered your question. What I'm going to do here, Mark, I think you're next. Actually, Kathy Weiss, you're next. If you want, you can unmute your phone and ask the next question.
Okay, it's actually 2 parts. One is I just got a form in the mail today telling me I got some documents from one of our financial agencies. I have to amend our return. Now, I could do that very quickly, but it's not going to be through the IRS. I already spoke to them. They said there's no way that they will get the proper information through IDOC to you. Should I just fill it out? What do you want me to do? I know I'm not getting financial aid anyway, but because I live on a farm. So,
okay, so you have to amend your return. You'll fill out a 1040X. Okay, part of the 1040X, you still have to submit your 1040 so we can actually see the rest of the documentation with us. I mean, the question is, if you're not looking to receive need-based aid but scholarship aid, there's a balance here that you do not have to complete the financial aid process if you think it's going to have no impact on you getting any grant eligibility. Okay.
Well, it might, because I have three in college that'll be in college.
Oh, okay. So college has a big factor here. Okay. So you can still submit the 1040X and your tax documents to the College Board. They will index those documents for us and send us the images and so forth. They won't, typically they also send us a data file of all your tax data, so the advisors don't have to enter that in. Okay.
Okay.
So they will be able to still image the documents for you. They will send us your tax documents, and their counselors will review your 1040X and make sure your eligibility reflects the amended tax information.
Okay, and the next question was, what if a parent is in graduate school?
We do not allow parents in graduate school because you're already considered dependent. But going back to that,
Okay.
okay, the initial part of it is that if you are paying your own educational loans, we would ask you to provide the information about how much you pay in student loans for yourself. There would be subsidized, unsubsidized graduate student loans, okay, that you paid for yourself, okay. We would take into consideration that as an annual amount off your income. If you're not paying for anything right now, that would be a moot point, but when you start paying for your own graduate student loans or undergraduate student loans, we would factor that in.
It has to be a loan, not just the tuition?
No, just the loan.
Oh, okay, there's no loan, so, okay, thank you so much.
Okay. We do have families who do decide to pay loans for their other children. That's a choice that you make, and that's not something that we will allow in our analysis, okay?
Gotcha.
All right?
Thank you so much.
Mark, you're next here. Mark? Can you hear me? Mark? All right, I think Mark is having some technical difficulties, so what I will go to the next one here is Deborah Coughlin. Hopefully I said your name right.
Yes. So my question is, my daughter's a sophomore, and I did the profile last year, so they're still looking at 2015, correct? So I just pull last year's profile and copy it exactly?
Exactly, with the exception of your assets. The assets will change.
Assets such as money
Cash,
in the bank?
Money in the bank, yep, your cash, your savings accounts, stocks, bonds, any of the assets, your home value, all the stuff that might change. Income assets will remain the same, but assets do change.
Okay, and if we had a waiver last year for the non-custodial parent, does the waiver stay? Because again, we're looking at 2015.
Yep. So the only thing that will need to be different is the returning student will just need to the student will not have to resubmit the supporting document, but the student will need to send to us, and there's going to be a processing chain link that they actually complete and say nothing's really changed. I do not have a relationship with my non-custodial parent, and then the counselor will take that information and move it forward. The process is much easier once we've gone through the process.
Okay. Thank you. So I just don't understand the CSS. So everything's exactly the same. If you did it last year, why can't they just pull that? Why are we doing it again?
Because assets change. Your family size change. Say, family's not only going to be 4 and 1. Sometimes they have 4 and 2. So there's information on there that does change annually.
I understand, but they're not looking at this year. They're looking at 2015.
But they're only looking at for income.
Okay.
Your assets change. So assets are different. They'll be reported. Say you would do the profile today, your assets are reported as of 4/7/2016, not the 15.
Okay. Does it make it clear because it's kind of confusing when, you do the FAFSA and you're looking at 2015. Does the profile make it clear they want to know today, not 2015, or?
Yes, they do. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to take one more question and we'll move on, okay? And so the next one is Brennan Lopez. All right. Brennan, I'm not sure if you're able to get through. If you have a question, feel free to type it in. Otherwise, I want to move on to Chris Holmes.
Yeah, can you just go over again how you treat homeowner equity?
Well, can you ask your question again? You cut out on me.
Can you go over again how you treat homeowner equity?
Oh, sure. So we look at the market value of what it is today. okay? Not the assessed value, but the market value. So if, we're not saying you would, but if you were to sell your house today, what would the value be? All right, and then you report the actual debt on the home. That gives us your equity in the house. If the family's equity is in excess of their income, we start looking at how much income is going to impact that. And we use a standard derivation here that's 3 times a family's income is what we will cap their home equity at. So I'll give you the example I just gave you. If you bought your house in Boston for $100,000 in 1970, and now in this day and age in Comm Ave, you're probably looking at maybe $1.5 million to $2 million. But say your income is $100,000, all right? If your mortgage is not mortgage, but your equity is $500,000, $700,000, whatever it might be, just because of the timing of which you bought your home, but your income hasn't grown to that capacity. Okay, we're going to look at your income. And in the scenario, if you're $100,000, but you have, $500,000 in home equity, we're going to cap your home equity at 3 times your income, which means we're only going to use roughly $300,000 towards your discretionary net worth. Okay, even though we're using $300,000 towards your discretionary net worth, we're only taking 3 to 5% of your value towards the family asset contribution. The formula is primarily derived from income, but we do use assets as part of the formula. So, don't keep in mind that we're using $300,000. We do take out for emergency reserve. We do take out for education savings allowance. We do take out for a variety of aspects there that are already part of it. So it's just not a straight $300,000. Take 3 to 5% of that, and bam, we're done. No, there's an additional calculation that looks at the age of the oldest parent. It looks to see if you have other children in college and how many years it may take them before they go to college. So we do try to make sure we look at the family resources. So everything you're filling out on the CSS profile that you tell us about your family is going to be used in the analysis to determine how much we're going to save of that asset towards the family contribution. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And I talk fast. I am from Boston, so if you guys need me to, reiterate things, if you need to have something clarified, feel free to write something in the chat message, and someone will get back to you. Okay. We're going to continue now. I know we do have some other questions. Okay. And we'll keep on going here, and hopefully that this will answer some other questions that might come up. Okay. So once you've entered, we have some other people from Boston. That's great. Once you've entered the custodial parent's information in here, the next step is going on to the student. Okay, both continuing students and first-year students have to enter this information. So you're going to see here, it's going to start asking, what's the name of the current school they're going to? Okay, how much gift aid or scholarships, grants, and so forth are they receiving? Continuing students, you need to put that in here so that we make sure that information is reflected on there. We do look to see if the student is a ward of the court. We want to make sure that we do recognize that there are some students whose family is no longer with us, and therefore we want to make sure we treat them as appropriately as possible. Okay. So again, going back to the profile information, a lot of this information is going to be helpful for us to determine eligibility. Now we start getting into family members. So this is where we're going to ask for any member of your family who's living in your household, okay, between July 1st, 2016, well, in this case, July 1st, 2017, and June 30th of 2018, need to be reported on as a family member. We may have other children who are going to college as well. You include them here as well, okay, even continuing students. So this is going to let us know, as we're determining eligibility, how this is factored in. Now, in full disclosure, we have nothing to hide and everything to gain here. And the part of this is to look at vertical but also horizontal equity. And by what I mean by that is families with similar resources and similar circumstances should pay similar amounts. Okay, it's about being fair. And families with varying different resources and varying family sizes should pay different amounts. So we do look at other siblings in college, but we recognize that costs for college is dramatically different. Okay, so if you have a child, 2 children in college, but one of them is going to a community college, there's no value judgment here. It's just a recognizing of cost is different versus UM. We don't include that student in the number in college. We will give you a dollar for dollar reduction off the family contribution, okay? Because we're recognizing the cost is dramatically different rather than giving you a 50-50-50 split, okay? If the child is getting a free ride, they're going to Division I school, and they get a full athletic scholarship, they won't be included in the number in college because, again, we're looking at the cost of the family, and we want to make sure we're recognizing that financially it's equitably allocated appropriately, okay? If you don't know your scholarship amounts, it's absolutely fine. If you don't know where the your children are going, that's absolutely fine. What we do when we use a number in college is greater than 1, we do follow up with every student and ask them for enrollment confirmation come August and September. This is our way to confirm the student did enroll. Okay, this is our way to confirm the student's financial aid information so that the award is accurately reflecting the student's circumstances. Okay, it's not that we're trying to do a bait and switch. We're trying to make sure that our resources are, as limited as they are awarded in accordance of family resources, okay, and family sizes. Okay, now this does provide information about the non-custodial parent. Okay, they ask for year of separation. They look how they contact them. This is used so that way an email will be generated to the non-custodial parent, letting them know that this is how they're going to be able to obtain the information. Now, parents, if you are divorced, information is never shared. Okay, we will never provide what you make to the non-custodial parent and vice versa. If you try to call us and try to get information about it, we won't give you any information, nor will we provide you with what your contribution is versus their contribution is. We don't want to get into a contest with you. X parent should pay Y and we should pay Z. It's a family matter, and that's something the family will have to work out. We will give you the family contribution, and it's just not something that the university wants to get involved in. It's ultimately in the betterment of the student and trying to make sure they're successful here. In situations where a parent is not in a student's life, okay, we do have a waiver process. What we try to do, and you'll see a few slides here, we will try to encourage you to contact our office first. It is not about each parent having a relationship. It is about the student having a relationship with that parent. Even if that parent does have some conversation with them throughout the year, whether that be on holidays, birthdays, whatever it might be, there is a relationship with that parent, and we will seek to get information from them to determine how much eligibility they will have. We do recognize that non-custodial parents in some cases do have some financial wealth, financial capacity here, and we recognize that does have an impact on the student's eligibility. We're never requiring a parent to contribute to a student's education, but we will always take their information into consideration to determine how much we will give. And if a parent decides ultimately to not contribute to the child's education, it is not this university's impact on it. Is that a parent is affecting that student's ability to come to UM. While we feel tremendously bad with it, we do see the family has the ability to contribute to educational expenses, and when they don't want to, we unfortunately don't have the opportunity to make that up. Okay. So I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, let you know that it is difficult, and we do recognize that, but it's ultimately a family matter. Now, we'll start going on here. Once you're done, you'll get a confirmation. Before you do anything, please make sure you check it out. Make sure that anything that's missing or things that need to be done are submitted and they're accurate. Okay, because we're going to look at your tax information and compare it against it. If anything's missing, we will go ahead and update it for you. Don't think that we're going to take things into consideration that we shouldn't have been. We want to make sure it reflects your circumstances to the capacity that it does. And we want to make sure the financial aid award you get, when admissions sends out their admissions decision, you get the financial aid award letter at the same time. Continuing students, you'll get your award letter once grades are in the spring semester. We want to make sure that you have everything you need to prepare to be successful at UM and not be put behind a constraint here where you're unable to afford it because you just didn't know about it. Okay, So the early bird gets the worm. Make sure you get your applications in on a timely fashion. Make sure that if you have any questions, you deal with the request for review process. Have a conversation so that way with an advisor to talk about how this may impact your eligibility. We're here to help. Okay, and we're here to make sure that we're able to try to make sure that the student is given every opportunity to attend recognizing that there's limits to our ability to do that. I would love to be Santa Claus, and I would love to make sure that every student has everything they need, but there are limits to what we do. So once you're done, you'll be asked to submit your information. There are some countries that are prohibited from completing this. And I don't think anybody on this webinar is from Iran, Cuba. There's a few other South African countries that are unable to complete this information. Should you be from one of those countries, you will need to complete a paper profile. Okay, but ultimately we do like to get the electronic one. It makes it a lot easier for us to do all the stuff that we need to do. It does take about 30 to 45 minutes per application to review, and knowing that we have potentially 15,000 applicants for first-year students, we have about 4,000 continuing students, and we have 15 financial aid advisors, it does mean that we have a huge leap to get everything done and get in your hands to have a conversation. Once you're done, you have the status of your application. You can see what schools you submitted to. You can see what information hasn't been submitted. You have everything at your fingertips, so that way you have completed the most important part of the application process, and that's the CSS profile. Once you're done, you will then need to go, which is the next part here, the institutional documentation service from the College Board. We are bringing this on board to ease family concerns, ease processing delays, ease any kind of transmission of data. Again, we do verify 100% of our applicants here, and we do ask for information to be submitted to the College Board's process. So you will go out to the website. Your first thing you'll do is log in. There's a cover sheet you need to print out. When you complete that cover sheet, you will need to fill out all the information that needed to be and what you're submitting to them, or you can choose to upload the documents yourself. The information on the College Board piece allows you to index those documents all by yourself. It is required for the 2017-18 academic year. If you're a continuing student and already submitted your 2015 tax documents, you do not need to do it again. Okay, so here's the piece that you'll need. So the first time you ever try to log in, it will ask for your IDOC, ID number, social security number, and so forth, just to confirm who you are by submitting that documentation. To get to the website, okay, here's the website. It's student.collegeboard.org, and it's profile to complete the profile application. If you have issues with the CSS profile, you call their customer service number at 1-800-277-6734. You can also email them at csprofile@mailmw.customerhelp.com. And for the profile IDOC piece, it's idoc.collegeboard.org. You'll be able to complete all that information and submit it to us by the deadlines that we need. Okay. First-year families, I want to drive it home to you, the deadlines. Those students who missed the deadline are at a distinct disadvantage, and you may not be eligible for admission should you not complete your admissions financial aid application as well as your admissions application. So it's critical that you try to get everything in by the deadlines, okay? Now, that's the presentation here. We will be doing on December 7th at 6 to 7 how to complete the FAFSA application, just letting you guys know that there are differences between last year and this year. We're going to open this session up for the next 15 minutes for some question and answer. The first person I see on here is Elena. Elena, if you want to go ahead and unmute the question.
Can you hear me?
Bad feedback on it. So go ahead, Elena, type your question in the chat session if you can, and I'll try to answer your question.
It won't let me send a question.
All right, so let's try this. Okay. All right, so I don't see Elena asking a question. I know she's having some problems. Are you there, Elena?
Yes.
Some bad feedback. Try to ask your question and I'll try to answer it.
What is your income based on
All right. I'm going to mute your phone just to avoid the feedback there. Elena, why don't you do this? I don't know how critical it is. If you want to email us at OFAS, that's OFAS at miami.edu, and we'll get back to you with the question that you're asking. The next person I see here is Jennifer. Jennifer, why don't you go ahead and ask your question? You'll have to unmute yourself. In the middle of your screen, you should see your phone, and just unclick the mute feature.
Okay, sorry about that. So my daughter is a freshman. She's a Singer Scholar right now. So
okay.
If our income has not changed, and we did not receive need-based aid last year, is there any practical reason to do these forms? Because,
no.
I mean, cool. That's kind of what I was thinking. And then, but if I don't do them now, I have 2 more that are going to school in 2019. I can still do them. I'll do their forms in 2019 and then submit also to Miami because everything changes in 19.
You got it.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. All right.
Yep,
next one question is from Emma Johnson. Go ahead, Emma, and unmute your phone. Oh, I think maybe Emma had her question answered. So how about Cameron? Cameron Triana?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, hi. My parents have been divorced since 2005, and my dad is the non-custodial parent. And I just wanted to know, like, what to do for that because, like, he's not, like, I don't have contact with him, and I'm quite sure he wouldn't even want to pay for me or help me with my college anyway, because he has a family of his own, I think.
Okay. So, Cameron, what we do, we don't try to talk about specific circumstances here.
What I
would recommend... No, it's absolutely fine. I think it's a good question. I just don't want to talk about your information in a public forum. This is a personal matter. What I would do here is contact our office sometime tomorrow if you can. We are open. There's office hours here. We're open late on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for phone calls. You can talk to anyone of our advisors. They can talk about the waiver process. They can talk about the impact on that non-custodial parent and what that might mean. So give our office a call, talk to one of the advisors, and they can help you walk you through this process. So when a family has a circumstance where the non-custodial parent is non-existent, we do have a waiver process, but we do encourage a conversation to make sure that we have all the information and that the request won't get denied, because we do get them, and in some circumstances it's just a family matter. And if the parent doesn't want to contribute but you do have a relationship with them, we won't allow that. Okay.
All right.
I hope
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So I think the next person here is Kathy Weiss.
Yes. Hello. I'm asking. This actually is for my daughter. When you go to any of these universities, like you have the little website, that the little part of your website, it has estimated family contribution, and it shows that you're not going to qualify for FAFSA aid or this aid. There's no reason to fill out these forms. Is that correct, or are they required?
They're not required for admission at all. This is only if you would like assistance to cover your educational expenses. Now, what I will say is that regardless of your income, you could make whatever Trump makes, okay, and still qualify for aid. Income will determine, though, what type of aid you will qualify for, okay? So at worst case, if you're looking for any subsidized loans, work study, things like that, then you only need to do the FAFSA application. okay, because we need the FAFSA to award federal aid. But if you're coming back and your family contribution is above our cost of attendance and it's showing that it's unlikely you'll qualify for any need-based aid, you do not need to go through this. But just know that it's there in case anything does happen.
Okay, and in the question I actually wanted to ask, under the extenuating circumstances thing, what if you know that as of the July before your kids would enter the university, that you would be having to take over the cost of your elderly parents' care because they're.
So if you have a unique circumstance where you're now providing for elderly family members, you can provide that information to us, okay? Whether or not there's a guarantee will have an impact on the eligibility, we would have to see that. But there's many cases where we see that you're now caring for 2 elderly parents. Okay, we would add them to the household size, okay, and give you an allowance for them being part of your household, okay? If there's medical expenses there, we would look at, okay, what expenses aren't covered by your parents' health insurance, okay? See what we could allow. Typically, we do provide every family with a medical allowance, okay? When that medical allowance is greater than 10%, then it has an impact on how much of a allowance we would give towards that family medical expense, okay? But that's certainly a request for review item that we would take into consideration.
Thank you.
Okay. Next person I see is Deborah Coughlin.
Yeah, so as far as the scholarships, grants, and gift aid, is tuition remission, what is that considered? Gift aid or what?
It's considered gift aid, yes. It's considered gift aid.
Okay, and so we're just supposed to go to like the financial aid page that's up now for our student and just go through it to fill out? It's hard to understand sometimes which is a grant and which is a scholarship. So just call the financial aid office and they could decipher that?
They can certainly help you out. Yep. Or if you're a continuing student, you can always look at your 1098T.
Or what?
Okay, your 1098T has box 5, and it tells you how much scholarship aid and gift aid you will receive within an academic year.
What do you look at? Say that again.
It's the 1098T. It's
Where
a tax document.
It's a tax document?
Yeah, that's provided by student accounts. And every year, the student accounts office tells you, because you can use it for tax purposes. And so
I never got one. I've never received one.
Well, is this in the fall? Is the student just a first-year fall student now?
No, she's a sophomore.
Sophomore? You didn't get one?
Yeah.
You might want to call student accounts.
No, I don't even know what you're talking about.
So a 1098T is a tax document that is used for determining the Hope and Lifetime Learning Credit. Okay, if your the amount that you pay for tuition and fees is less than what you get for scholarship aid, that difference is used to determine how much you will qualify for in the Hope and Lifetime Learning Credit, the education credit. Okay, if your scholarship aid is greater than your tuition and fees, then you wouldn't get one. So if you're a tuition remission student, depending how much you would get, okay, you might not even get one because your tuition remission covers all your expenses. Okay, so that there's sometimes a distinction there, but the 1098T is something that we provide for tax purposes that give you how much your tuition and fees were minus how much you got in gift aid.
So I should call student accounts?
Yep.
Okay, and also I went to the high school at a financial aid seminar, and they said you have to put, in order to get the Florida resident grant this year, you have to put that you want to go to a state college, even if that's not your first choice, because if you don't put a state college, you're not going to get the grant. I couldn't figure out what they were talking about, because she did get it at UM last year, because she's a Florida
grant.
The Florida resident grant?
Yes. Florida Resident Access Grant is only available to private schools, not state schools. Okay, and so you have to make sure that you list the school you want to go to as the recipient school for us to collect the Florida Resident Access Grant. Okay.
Right. So I think they were just misinforming people, because it didn't make sense what they were saying.
So, I mean, as a continuing student, I want to worry about it. First-year students, you know, if we aren't listed as the primary school on the FAFSA, we would contact the student and let them know they have to change the FAFSA in order for the state to pay us.
Right, but I should call student accounts and ask them for one of those 1098.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So next on the agenda is Chris Holmes.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure I understand the timing. My son's a continuing student, and
Yep.
really don't need to file this stuff until April 15th, but I could actually do the FAS for now and the CSS profile now, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore I wouldn't be providing you any 2017 asset information. And I,
That's your 2016 information. The
right,
day you file your question. Yep.
and then I could file it, and they would just go ahead and process things for April 15th.
You got it, and you'd be done.
Great, thanks.
It would make my life a lot easier too. We'd make sure that everything's in. We don't have to hunt students down.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. All right, so next one here is Emma. Emma Johnson? You'll have to unmute your phone, Emma, by that little in the middle of your screen. Nope. Are you there? Hello?
Hello?
Is this Emma?
No, this is Bria's mom.
All right, go ahead, Bria. Why don't you ask your question? I think we're waiting for Emma to connect to ask her question.
Okay. I think my question was along the lines of I sent under iDocs, I sent a copy of the cover sheet to the non-custodial parent because they're not as technically savvy, asking for the 2 documents that were being requested. There's a good chance that those items will not be provided. So I am trying to figure out, should I just call you guys and ask? I want to give that person time enough to submit the information that you guys are requesting, but I wanted to make sure there is a backup plan because I got a feeling we won't receive them.
So yeah, I mean, that's a question you'd have a conversation with one of our advisors for. The student can track the status of their application on iDoc, idoc.collegebar.org. They can track the status of what's received and not received. Okay, but if you're having difficulty getting that information, just contact our advisors and they can talk to you about Plan B and Plan C.
Okay, awesome. That was my question. Thank you so much.
No problem. All right, so we're going to get Emma one more try. I don't know if you're able to connect. All right. I don't know if Emma's having some. Emma, I don't know if you want to try typing in your question on the chat feature. We're going to move on to the next one here. And I don't want to kill the name, but is it Israel's the last name. All right. Who's online?
I'm sorry. One additional question. This is Bria Permenter's mom. I noticed on the website, and it did state that without the information, most likely an admission response will not be granted. So does that mean if that person does not provide that information in the timeline, that they will never know if they if they were granted admission or not?
Well, you're asking a very difficult question, and this is what we try to grapple with every time. If a family member, if there is a relationship with the family member, but they're unwilling to provide the information, that becomes a family matter, and we're unable to determine the student's eligibility. And so, yes, it could have an impact on the student's ability to get admitted and therefore get financial aid if that parent is just unwilling to provide the information, whether that be willingness or doesn't want to pay.
Okay.
Okay, so I would certainly encourage you to, talk to an advisor about options.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I see the next one here is Rogelio.
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi there. Yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Good. Question. If we have to use 2015 income, and for whatever reason, the type of income we have is consulting, so it changes a lot year over year. And for example, 2017 might be much lower. How do we handle that?
So in those particular situations, we're in a very big gray area with this change in regulation. In the past, we would have done a 3-year average. We would take the good and the bad. Okay. What I would certainly do is let's talk with an advisor here, but in many cases we're going to have to determine whether or not we're going to use, a 3-year average or a 2-year average of looking what's going on. Because the challenge that we're coming against is once we do that, it's a 4-year commitment to continue doing that forward for the next 4 years. Doesn't mean we can't do it, but it does take a little more work for us to be able to manage that. So when a family's income fluctuates greatly, that's something we want to factor in. But currently we're deciding to use just 2015 and 2016, and when 2017 becomes available, then the eligibility will reflect that.
So should we have a separate conversation how we can use 3 years, 2 years, 4 years, right?
Yeah, I would certainly have a conversation with the advisors about your circumstance and see what options are available.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. So next is Cameron.
Hi again. So a question on the FAFSA. Do I have to put the University of Miami as the first one? I don't know. I can't remember which schools I listed in order, but does it have to be the first for the Pell Grant to pay you guys? Or?
Are you a Florida resident?
Yes.
So you would want to list us, depending on where you want to go. Say you can list Miami first. You would list Miami first, so that way when it comes time for state eligibility, we'll be able to collect the money for your state eligibility. But if you decide you want to go someplace else, you need to go back into FAFSA and add that school as a primary school.
All right, and then it
doesn't
said
have
that
eligibility.
Okay, and it said that as far as Pell Grants are concerned, it says the school determines that, and it didn't give me like an estimate of what it would be. Why is that? And
the school doesn't determine the eligibility. It's ultimately up to the Department of Education and where your family contribution falls. Okay. Typically, it has to be below roughly $5,000 to qualify for a Pell Grant. Okay. If it's greater than $5,000, you wouldn't qualify for any Pell Grant eligibility.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. So it doesn't. So if I do, and it says under Pell Grant that the school is, I don't know.
You want to look at your comments. Okay. The comments on the first of your application will give you some more information. But I would say if you have certain questions about it, just give us a call and we can walk you through that, because we're going to get your FAFSA application on December 1st.
You got it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we have 2 more questions. That's pretty much all the time we have left for. So, Judy Finch, go ahead and unmute your phone.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes, you were talking about home equity. I live in Fairfield County, Connecticut. So where we bought a house at the height of the market, and now the value is tremendously less than what we purchased. So what kind of percentage, or how does that factor into these forms, since you only take like 3 to 5% of equity?
Well, it's 3 to 5% of your total discretionary net worth, and your discretionary net worth is made up of your cash and savings, home equity, business value, stocks and bonds, things like that. Okay, so when I say home equity, I know it's a touchy subject for families. So if your value is tremendously less, but your mortgage is the same it was when you bought the house, we're going to look at that. It's going to be A minus B is going to give you what your equity is. So if your value has gone down tremendously, it's going to reduce the amount of equity in your home. Okay, and that's going to have an impact on there. If it's still greater than 3% of your total family income, okay, then we would cap it at what your family income is.
Okay.
Okay.
And I was open house, and I know there are all these grants and aids for Florida residents. Is there anything additional for out of state?
No, there is not. So we have the Florida Resident Access Grant. We have Florida Bright Futures, but keep in mind that they're essentially merit scholarships. Okay, so students have to do criteria for SAT, ACT, community service, and so forth. So if a student qualifies for that, it's just defraying what UM is providing to that student. Okay, so going back to the horizontal and vertical equity, we want to make sure that if your family contribution is X, you're still paying X, so that way it's similar to other families in that, if you will, bracket. Okay, so if someone in the same circumstances like you, are getting state assistance, well, our funding is coming from a different source than yours.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? All right, so I have one final question here, and that's for, is it Keva?
Kaveh, yes. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Not bad. Just a quick question. My daughter's a freshman, and she's receiving aid as well as the merit-based scholarship at
Okay.
University of Miami. If our financial situation has not changed, I know it's kind of a if question. If the financial situation and the assets have not changed, would the aid amount change next year?
No, if everything remains constant, household size, number in college, income, assets, everything remains constant, okay, and say, and I remain constant, also academics, because satisfactory academic progress impacts that as well, okay, because merit scholarships have a 3.0 GPA, they must maintain 12 credits annually, and so forth. Everything remaining constant, okay, the award will look very similar to what it was this year.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so we can count on that. All right, that's all I needed.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So
and then we don't have to submit the 2015 through IDOC. We'll just go through the CSS, correct?
You 1 year reprieve. Next year you'll have to do it.
So this year we don't have to fill it out by April?
You have to do the FAFSA and the CSS profile by April 15th as a continuing student. You don't have to submit IDOC since we already have that information.
Perfect.
Next
Okay.
year, when you're looking at 18, 19, I mean, we're going another year away and it's crazy. We're saying 18, 19.
That's okay.
That's
Yep.
when you use IDOC.
All right. Good to know.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ray. This was very helpful.
All right. Thanks, folks. Well, that concludes our session for today. I know we have one more question, and Emma, feel free to contact us. I don't want to cut us off, but I appreciate everyone's time this evening. I hope this was helpful. Any feedback you folks have, I would love to get your feedback on it. This will be recorded and put onto our website here. Thanks for your time, and have a great evening. Bye now.